Hey everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Hey Shanika. Hey Kristy. Welcome to the Khalia Deborah Podcast. First of all, I just want to welcome everyone back. Welcome our listeners back. Anybody who's watching on YouTube or wherever you're watching this from, welcome to another episode. Or if this is your first time watching and listening, welcome. I'm so excited to be sitting here with two of my favorite women. Shanika and Kristy has been such a pivotal part in my journey, and I'm excited to bring you guys in on a conversation. I typically have conversations like this with these women, like in private, like, all to myself. But I'm excited for today's episode to be able to share with you guys. So I'll give a little bit of background about myself in today's episode. My name is Khalia Deborah. I am the owner of Khalia Deborah Consulting and the host of the Khalia Deborah Podcast. And I do a host of other things, but today's not about me. um, but our topic of today is going to be called Having Grace in Wifehood, Motherhood, and Your Dreams. And me personally, I just got married last year in September. In 2 months, it'll be our 1 year anniversary. But today, to be completely honest, just to, set the record straight, I have so many mixed emotions about this episode, not because of the people on the episode, but because of the topic. I told myself I didn't want to be to be on anyone's platform talking about marriage. Um, it's so many people out there now, who are talking about marriage and millennial marriage, and they want to be the face of it and telling people what marriage should be. And it's just so much out there. And I think it's just so much noise out there. And I don't really want to be in the mix of it, to be completely honest. So, I kind of never really wanted to be on a platform talking about it. Marriage seems like such a trend nowadays, especially on social media. It I see videos and I just get so protective over my marriage because it's almost like it looks all put together. Like we doing this for the gram, and it just seems so much like a trend. And I become so protective over my marriage and my family that I just want to enjoy being married. I just want to learn. I just want to grow in the season I'm in, the phase that we're in. And even though we just got married last year, we've been together about what? We've been together. Our journey took place like 8 years ago, and I just want to get my time and my experience in before trying to be like a public figure on marriage. Like that's just how I feel. Like I just feel like there's a time and place for everything. But from time to time, I find that like my husband and I find ourselves in private settings, just talking to people, whether they're friends or strangers and stuff, and we get to have cool conversations about marriage, about travel, about life, and those are cool. And we find ourselves sometimes sharing our story in those private settings, and I'm cool with that right now. But today's conversation, I really want to shine the light on Shanika and Kristy. Um, my wedding anniversary is 2 months away, and today's conversation
Right.
is going to kind of shine a light on two people who've helped me throughout this journey. Even before engagement, like when those things weren't even like thought of, they were like planting seeds in me. So something that I get the luxury of having, which is them. And I say it's a luxury because everybody doesn't have mentors, especially mentors outside of their family. Like I have great women in my family, but I get the luxury of having unbiased people who aren't in the bloodline, who can just share their story, pour into me, keep it real when I need some checking. Like, that's a luxury because not everybody, has that. And not only, coming from a marriage standpoint, but both of them are mothers. Both of them have, their own businesses and is chasing down their own dreams. So I think I'm one of the lucky few who really get to have that in my life. And I am sharing with you guys something that I kind of get to hold to myself. So I hope you guys get something from this. I really hope that it inspires you or encourages you in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to introduce our guests. So I'm going to introduce in my own way, and then I'll let them tell a little bit about themselves. Uh, Kristy, huh, I met Kristy years ago. Like, I started off by, like, being her photographer, and then, like, just couldn't actually, both of them. I started off by being their photographers, and if we wanna go back, I met Shanika when I was a little girl at a friend's sleepover, and she's the aunt of one of my, childhood friends. Like, who knew, like, fast forward to now that
Right.
we'd be so connected, but I was both of their photographers, and they were actually 2 of the people who pulled the consulting out of me. Because I was just supposed to be taking pictures, and then pictures turned into sharing business advice and them implementing that advice and building their own businesses and stuff. And then it was just like we were stuck together forever. Um, but yeah, Kristy was awesome. She started off as a photographer, as a photo client of mine, and then morphed into different areas. She ended up serving, helping me in different ways by helping me with networking because I don't like it. And she kind of helps connect me with people in a way that fits my personality. She sits on the board of the nonprofit organization I founded called Dreams to Founder, and she's such an instrumental role. Anytime I need her, she's there, and vice versa. And she's a networking strategist. So if you need help getting connected with the right people, make sure you take down Kristy's information, follow her, and get connected. Shanika Knight, she is the grace coach. She's a certified Christian life coach. She does a bajillion other things. She's a mother, she's a wife. Both of them are mothers and wives. But Shanika again came on as a photo client, but she was such a huge, like, I tell people all the time, like, she's like my life coach. She helps me through challenging situations. I remember one time calling her like in tears, just like about to break, and she just always knows what to say during the right thing. Like, during the right moment, she knows what to say, but she's been a sounding board in so many different areas for me, especially when you just need to be checked. I don't even realize she be checking me sometimes, but I, like, take that on and take it seriously. But she also sits on the board of my nonprofit organization, Dreams to Founder, and again, she just helps guide through the decision making in the organization. So they've sat in coffee shops with me, y'all. I remember that, Kristy, us sitting in Panera, talking and just, just letting it all out and not being afraid to be ugly. They've answered my calls when I wanted to give up. They shared their stories that's inspired me. So now I'm sharing it with them. Both of them come with years in. And when I say years in, I mean they both have individually, not even collectively, individually, close to 2 decades in marriage. Kids in college and already graduated college. Big ups to Brooke, who just graduated. That's Kristy's daughter. She could just sent her son off to college. Like, they have adults as children, and they have, like, you know, close to 2 decades in each of marriage. So it's just awesome just to have them. So where I want you guys to just tell them a little bit about who you are, what you do from your own words, and then tell us your favorite quote or one of them, because I'm pretty sure you guys have a million of them.
So does it matter? I guess I can go
Yep,
first.
just jump in.
Hey everybody. So as Khalia said, I am Shanika Knight, and AKA the Grace Coach. I am a Christian, certified Christian life coach, as Khalia has already mentioned. I am the CVO, Chief Vision Officer of the G Network, which is an entity that I kind of created along with Khalia's help. Basically is an entity to help women get to wholeness. My ultimate objective is emotional and spiritual wellness. So in my effort of, doing that, it's helping women to accept God's grace, which a lot of times we don't do that. We forget that it's a free gift. We forget that it is there for us and it is given to us. And despite our past, despite our history, things that we may have done, we feel like grace is not given to us. So we kind of keep ourselves stuck in our minds. But my objective is to help women be able to accept that grace and then be able to grow in God's love. And as they grow in God's love, the more grace they accept upon their lives and grow in God's love, then you can ultimately live genuinely. Removing the mask, being true to God, true to yourself, true to those who are around you. So that is the basis of the G Network, hence the G.
Yeah.
Meaning grace, grow, and genuine. That's my little 2-minute elevator, speech, as we call it. And yes, I am a wife. I have been married. I'm going into now my 21st year of marriage.
Yes.
I have 2 children. I have a 26-year-old daughter, and I have a 19-year-old son who is entering into his sophomore year of college. Um, please say yes, I do a lot. I could be here all night, listing out all the things that I do. But I enjoy life now. And we probably will get into that, a little later. I am happy at the place that I am right now. And yes, I do have so many quotes, but the number one that kind of stood out when you asked me, when you said that was, there is a quote that I kind of stand by, which says, "Your past is a place of reference and not a place of residence."
Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
And that is something that I have embraced in my journey, because typically a lot of times we allow ourselves, like when we allow ourselves to focus on our past and let our past, be that place of residence, like in our mind, we end up putting ourselves like in a prison, right? A prison made by our own hands.
Mm-hmm.
And we convince ourselves that, like, this is it. This is as far as I can go, because of my past, because of my history. Like, I can't accomplish anything. No one is going to accept me. I can't do this. I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we really mentally and emotionally close ourselves up in a place where there's actually doors that we can literally walk out of whenever we want.
Amen.
Yeah.
Like, it's a choice. So either you're going to allow your history, your past, who you were before, your upbringing, to continue to be the residence that you live in, or use that as a point of reference to propel you into your next.
Mm.
I like that.
I love that. Yes.
I do. And it's funny because I was seeing her smiling, like, thinking of my book. It's all about, like, just growing from your past and looking at it and then growing from it.
We have to, because we allow ourselves to be stuck. But I'm like, I can go clear, I can go on and on. But I'm going to stop. I digress.
Hey, Kristy, you're up.
Listen, every time Shanika talks, I feel like I get a free session. I'm telling you, she's always dropping gems. So I just sit back and I got my notebook and I'm taking notes, because I love the concept of making sure we understand that grace is a free gift, because we don't give ourselves enough of that. So I'll, I can go on and on as well. I'm going to start with my introduction. Kristy Lynn Purnell. I've been using my middle name more often in recent years, because when I was growing up, I was like, why Lynn? Like, why? I was like, I feel like I have a country name, Kristy Lynn. Like, and I didn't embrace it as much. I was named after my godmother, whose name is Christine Lynette. So that's where the Kristy Lynn came in. And the more, the older and older I got, I was like, I think I like it. I think I like it, but I actually love it. And so when I had my daughter, and I named her Brooklyn, I made sure that it was 2 N's at the end, much like my middle name. And so I love that we're connected in that way. She and I are connected in so many ways with our mother-daughter relationship. And I love that, I was able to put my name, in her name. But anyway, I am, by day, I am a business project manager for a diversity recruiting strategies team, at a financial services organization. And by night, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and I love to pour into other women. I love mentorship. I love being able to, hold my hand out to bring someone else up. And I might not be, C-level executive or CEO, but I have time in life. I have experience in life. I have connections in life. I have a lot to offer when it comes to, what I've learned in my 45 years. And so my goal and passion is to make sure I can share advice and that wisdom and knowledge and impart all that in the younger crowds and someone who could use that information. And so, I share that because I know I could have used that growing up. I was just the other day when Shanika was my speaker for my event on Tuesday, we were talking about how long we've known each other. I was like, oh, wow. Like 34 years, like a long time. And it gave me chills because you don't see that a lot. And the fact that we still talk and we still are connected and we still have a friendship is amazing, because sometimes you have to leave some people behind. But I love the fact that we are connected in the circle that we're connected in, because we're all pouring into each other. And so when I counted those years, because I was calculating, I was like 45. I was like, this is it's truly amazing. And the fact that we're both married and have children, grown children, and you can't tell that we have grown children. Okay, so I will share that. There are secrets to that too. But yes, so I've been married for 18 years. We've been together for 21 years, 22 years. So it's been a long time. So we have three kids. My daughter, who is Brooklyn, she is 23. She just graduated from Temple University. My bonus daughter, Skylar, she is 22, and she graduated from Norfolk State University back in December. And then my bonus son, Calvin III, Trey, he is a working man, 21 years old. And we have no young kids, but we do have our pandemic baby, our pit bull, who is a puppy. He just turned 1, DMX. And so we do have our pandemic baby. But I will say my favorite quote, and I've shared this all over the place, and the fact that I get to live this out in my day job is amazing, because sometimes you have to create your passion in your side hustle or your own entrepreneurship or your own business. But I get to live out my favorite quote in my 9 to 5 and everywhere else in my life as well. And so that quote is, "We rise by lifting others."
Yeah.
And I did not know the power in that quote when I was young, because I didn't have that. I didn't have someone like really reaching out, trying to build me up. And so because I didn't have that as a teenager and as a college student, and even in my first few years of working in corporate America, and when I found out what it meant, I was like, well, I was missing all this time. Like, where were my people when I needed them? Where were my hands to hold? And so I said to myself, I would never do that to anyone else. I would always be there to be that person to someone, that mentor to someone. And you can't mentor hundreds and hundreds, but you can pour into hundreds and hundreds as much as you can, right?
Yep.
So we rise by lifting others. That's my favorite quote. There are other quotes that I love, but not one quote tops that. And again, it's because I'm living that out. And like Shanika made a point, where you are in your life right now, being happy. I think that has a lot to do with knowing that you can give yourself grace in the moments that we are struggling.
Yeah.
Because while you might be happy, that doesn't necessarily mean life is perfect. Life ain't perfect for anyone, right? But that means that you're giving yourself and those around you the grace that they need in order to be themselves and to experience life and to come out of whatever storm that you might be in, all in one piece, knowing that God had your back and that you're going to just be, you're going to be just fine.
Oh,
and I will say, I am in that same space. And when I think it was more so when I got to my 40s. I think I was growing up in my 20s. I think I was still growing up in my 30s. I thought I knew it all in my 20s. And then my 30s, I was like, okay, now I know it all. And I really didn't. I was still experiencing some things that would impact me and change who I was. And now that I'm in my 40s, I'm like, oh, so this is what it feels like to actually feel grown, like really grown.
Like grown.
Like grown, yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, ladies, so much for just introducing yourself from your perspective. I was like, because I could just read off a sheet of paper and give everybody your bio, but I love hearing people talk about themselves. Like what, because it really shows like what do you think about yourself? Like how do you talk about yourself, your experience and stuff. But I want to dig right into our conversation. And the first step on our journey here is wifehood. And I'm going to just ask you guys some questions. We're going to dig into this conversation. And if it goes on a tangent, guys, which it might with us three, it's going to go where it's going to go. But when it comes to being a wife, what does being a wife mean to you? And in that question, you can share a little bit about your experience about being a wife, but what does a wife mean to you? And with my 10 months of experience, I will just, from my journey thus far, I feel like, number one, it means everything to me. Just in my experience over this last year, the nurturing spirit that I have, like I've always loved caring for people. I've always kind of been like hands on. Like people used to tell me like, you're gonna make a good mom. You're gonna make a good mom. But it was just like I love caring for people. I love doing for others. But stepping into this role, it kind of takes it to a whole different level. The nurturing spirit is a big part of supporting and nurturing the relationships, not just in your marriage, but in your family. And like as a wife, I feel like that's a huge important role that I play. It just means so much. It's almost like to me, being a wife is like setting the foundation of relationship and setting the foundation for your family while you're supporting and covering your husband as they lead. So that's just my little tidbit there. But I want to hear you guys. So Kristy, kick us off. What does being a wife mean to you?
Ooh, you had to start with me on this one, huh?
Yup.
So for me, it's a big role, because as I was growing up, I did not have in my life family members that were wives or that were still in their marriages. Let me put it that way. So I did not know what it meant to be a wife. My mom wasn't married. This is for a whole nother podcast, but I didn't know my father. The father figures, that I had were, and so I didn't get an opportunity to actually see great examples. And so I didn't know what to do, right? I didn't know what to do when I got married. All I knew was I was in love with this person. We were best friends. We're committed to each other. We want to see each other grow up and grow into these amazing people in the world, but and in God. But most importantly, we want to do it by each other's side, right?
Right.
And so that was what I thought was my role, right? And separate all of that, even from the spiritual and biblical. And as I started to grow and into wifehood, to me, it is the best replica of God's love. That's what it really is. Because at the end of the day, there are so many things that you have to put to the side, and including yourself, in an effort to make sure that you're working your wifehood the way in which you should be.
Yes.
And if you don't, it might not work. And so it is simple. It is as simple as God's love. If you can adopt God's love for yourself and understand the forgiveness and understand what hardships are and getting through those storms and really being strong within those storms, but
Yeah.
also sharing, caring, nurturing, loving, communicating. All of that to me is God's love. It's in the Bible, right? And so when you don't have God in between your marriage, to me, you're going to have so many things that distract you, so many things that come up first before, your husband, and vice versa. It's the biggest replica for me of God's love. And again, I didn't see that growing up, but I had to learn. And I'm telling you, I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your similar experience to how it's just like it just wasn't like around you.
It wasn't around me.
It was like getting married. I was just like, shoot, like I gotta figure this thing out.
Yeah. And the crazy thing.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the crazy thing is my mom ended up getting married.
Same.
Right? In my mind, it's still in my mind, she was not a wife. And it was only because the experience that I saw in front of me as a result of her marriage, it was never positive. It was never uplifting. None of it was, how can I put it? It was still, to me, I knew in my mind as a child that this can't be an example of what marriage is supposed to be. So it was kind of like bad experiences that I had to see in front of me in order to shape what my thought process was about being a wife. But then I learned, I had to learn my way, not really my way, but through the hard way and through God, is really how I learned. But again, my mom ended up getting married. It wasn't to my father, but she ended up getting married. And to this day, I still in my mind feel like, yeah, that probably wasn't the best example.
But it's like even like my mom was married, but I was so young.
Mm-hmm.
Like I barely, I don't even remember it. And then got divorced, and then got remarried. But by the time the remarry happened, I was like in college doing my own thing. I already had my first kid. It was like I had already had so much of what my experience was from like observing that it's already set in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And like becoming a wife myself, I'm like, shoot, like I have to figure this out. And not like oh man, I gotta figure this thing out. Like I gotta get myself out of something, but it's almost like it's a blessing. It's a blessing, but it's also something that I wish I had more like better experience or better observation with growing up. But the blessing part for me is we can grow our marriage from how we feel like we should.
Mm-hmm.
We can let God guide it. I don't have the imprint of, well, my mama did it this way. I saw my daddy be this way. I saw this. It's like, no, like we can just build this marriage how we feel like God is leading us to build it without the influence of how we seen someone else do it. Now, yes, we had to unlearn some things that we saw growing up, but I feel like it was I feel like God knew what he was doing. Because in order to break some generational curses, in order to break some stuff, we needed not to have recollection of how some other people did their thing. So it's just like, no, we got this clear path to kind of build how we feel like we should. And I think we're doing a good job. We got forever to learn. Like there's going to be different seasons of this. And we're going to be continuously learning. But I kind of like the starting point that we got. Even though I always thought like, man, like I'm going to screw this up when I get married. Like I don't know how to be a wife. And I don't know how to do this. And it was just like literally one of my prayers to God was, before we got married, was, God, you help me through this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it with your guidance.
There you go.
Period.
So that's it. You guys have basically, me being the grandmama of the group, I mean, y'all two have basically, you covered it all, honestly. But everything that you both said, absolutely is, I can 100%, agree with. For me growing up, like my biological father was like, I knew my biological father was, he was in my life, like kind of in and out. Him and my mom was never married. I'm his only child, the only child between him and my mom. But he wasn't like always there. My mom was with my stepdad, which Kristy knows my stepdad. Well, knew my stepdad because he passed away.
Mhm.
But you know, they were together since I was like 10 months old. But then they finally got married when I was 11. But watching them, so of course I had my grandparents, you know, on my my stepdad's parents, and then I had my mother's parents who were both, you know, who were married. But it wasn't to me where I felt like these were, as you ladies were saying, like really good examples, you know, of what is marriage, like, you know, what is a wife, what is she supposed to do? So like looking at my grandparents, right, it was, you know, she was always cooking, she was cleaning, you know, they didn't work, they were at home, all those kinds of things. So of course in the back of your mind you're like, all right, so this is what a wife is, you know, I'm supposed to just be, you know, domestic, you know, you're not supposed to have, right. So then when my mom and dad got married, it's like they got married. I'm like, y'all should have just not gotten married, because I mean, like it just went, you know, things just kind of like went crazy. So it was kind of like a toxic environment. And my mother was not one who, I mean, you know, she cooked and she cleaned. My mother worked, you know, as well. So she wasn't one who just stayed home. So my experience and examples of marriage was a little bit confusing. So when I got married, I have to honestly say, I was sitting here thinking, and that was what was the expression. Like, I was sitting here thinking as I was listening, you know, to you both, because I'm like, wow, was there ever a time that I actually thought about what am I supposed to do as a wife?
Right.
Like, you know, I don't have any, you know, tools, or, you know, I know, am I supposed to be cooking all the time? Because if that's the case, this ain't gonna last long, because that's not something that, you know, am I supposed to just be, you know, Susie homemaker, you know, just being extremely submissive, you know, all those kinds of things. But what I had to do was, I had to, as Kristy has already said, I had to literally allow God to show me what to do. And the thing about it is that there really isn't any instructions in regards. Now we see things, you know, wife is supposed to, you know, love her husband, you know, she leaves her family, and, you know, she's supposed to respect her husband and keep her house, and, you know, all of those things, right? And yes, we do all of those things, right? But at the same time, I honestly believe that being a wife is definitely making sure you have the fruits of the spirit.
Yes.
Because, you know, you're going to need patience, you're going to need, you know, kindness, you're going to need like all of those things, because things change, things shift, right? And the time that we're living in now, you know, women today are not just domesticated. You know, we're not just sitting in the house, you know, cooking and cleaning. We have careers, you know, we're our own bosses. We're out here doing our thing. And so it's like, as a wife, you have to now be able to juggle that. So for me, that means, although I have my own life, right? I have my own things that I am doing, my own goals I'm trying to reach, right? I still have to make sure that I balance that where my husband is not lacking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm still making sure that, you know, I'm putting time in, that I'm still, you know, respecting him, and, you know, respecting the things that, you know, that he may need. You know, being a wife, I think, is being attentive,
Yeah.
conscious, you know, and aware. You cannot be selfish. You know, people say all the time when you get married, it's 50-50. I honestly don't believe it. I feel like it's 100-100.
It's whatever needs to be on that day. Like,
it's like, you know, this is not, I mean, some people say it's a partnership. I mean, I look at not so much as I mean, it can be, right? I'm not saying partnership is a bad term.
we're doing life together.
Exactly, right? And we're in this thing together.
And there's going to be times where, like, for example, like, I mean, you guys know, like, I deal with bad migraines, like, period. And like last year, especially right before we got married, I was being like attacked like crazy. I was in a hospital. It was just, I was just having it. I could not show up like I typically do. Like, so there was times he was picking up the kids, starting the dinner, doing this, taking them outside, taking them to the gym, doing this, doing it, because I need to rest. Or just got home from the hospital or something like that. So it's just like there's gonna be days where he's pulling more weight than me. But then vice versa too. There's days where I'm pulling more weight than him. And it doesn't always have to be because, oh, somebody's sick or somebody's this. Sometimes it's just like, yo, nah, you just need a break. I got this. So I can't put a percentage to that.
But that's what I'm saying is like, it's like you said, every day is different, right?
Yeah.
You can't really put that. We both are given, our all for the most part. So therefore, like on those days, Khalia, when you were sick and you weren't able to, he's given his 100%.
Exactly.
But the thing is that he also recognized that you weren't giving your 100. You were giving it, but wasn't really able to give it because it was a reason you weren't able to give it, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't because you're just like, I ain't doing it.
Right.
I'm saying like, no, I'm gonna leave this up to you to do. I think that what happens a lot of times, especially in this day and time, with a lot of younger women, this generation, a lot of they just want the whole perception and presentation of being married, right? They want the whole big wedding, but they don't prepare for the marriage. And Kristy, you have already said it, which I definitely was going to say. If God is not the center of your marriage, it will not last. It will not last. It will be chaotic. It will be stressful. This is why people get married, and in less than 6 months, they're filing for divorce.
Yep.
Being a wife is not a walk in the park.
Mm-mm.
I mean, Khalia, you've been with your husband for 8 years, or what have you. Guys have been married for almost a year. I want to talk to you again in another 5 years.
Yep.
Because in 5 years, things are going to also change and things are going to also shift, right? Yeah. I'm at a stage now where I'm closer to 50 than I am to 40. My husband is already in his 50s, right? So, when you get married, you got to think about you're in this thing for the long haul, right? We don't pay attention oftentimes to the vows that we recite when we're standing in front of the pastor. Till death do us part, for richer or for poorer, sickness and in health. So it's like, if you're not preparing yourself, for those things, because they can come. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it can't be the minute my husband loses his job, I'm out the door because now he don't handle, he's not able to contribute because I'm accustomed to living a certain type of lifestyle and he can't give me that anymore. So now I'm off to the next person who can. That's not being a wife.
Right.
That's not, that's not what marriage is about. And I think that if a lot of these younger women, if they would just like seek some wisdom,
mm-hmm.
Have someone that has kind of, got some years under their belt, before they go and make this decision, I think that we would have more marriages that last. Because honestly, they definitely don't make them like they used to. Marriages are not lasting, as long as, I've been married and that this Kristy's been married. Now, mind you, my whole 21 years has not been a blissful 21 years. You know what I'm saying? Because again, you got two different people with two different backgrounds, two different personalities, two different, sets of issues. So you never know what may come up. But it's all about whether you're going to fight for what you believe, God has ordained and what belongs to you, or you're going to just, retreat. And it is, Lord Jesus, it is not. It is not easy. And that's why I'm saying, like, I can say that I'm happy now.
Yes.
I can legitly honestly say, with all sincerity, that I am happy. I am happy in my marriage. I am happy at the place that we are right now. I like it here. This is not. But if you'd have asked me that maybe 10 years ago, I'd have been like, no. And that's just me being honest. And I'm not saying everything was all him or everything was all me. We both had our stuff and we had to actually stop for a second and be like, you know what? I got to do something about this. If this is what I want and I want this thing to work, I got to do something about it. So my thing is, when I'm talking to people or talking to women about marriage or talking to couples, I'm saying to them, before you even do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because two broke people can't make a whole relationship.
I was one of them people you had a conversation with before we did.
And if you don't do the work, and again, a lot of us, mind you, like I said, I've been married almost 21 years. Back then, no, wasn't nobody. The things that everyone, like the younger generation and stuff, that had they're privy to is right at their fingertips. All of this knowledge, all this information, all this stuff. I didn't have that.
We did not have that at all.
You know what I'm saying? So I like jumped in it and had to kind of fend, for myself, and like you said, Khalia, figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But like now, you have so many resources. You have so many people who are out here, just giving all the information, right? And it's like, if you don't deal with you, all you're doing is bringing all of that stuff into this relationship, and now it's toxic. No, I'm not saying you have to be perfect before you get married, because no one's perfect.
Yep.
Some things you grow together and you work through, but there's also some things that you got to be like, you know what? I might need to sit on somebody's couch so I can figure out where this anger is coming from.
Amen. Yes.
Before I walk down this aisle, because now I walk down this aisle and now we're married and now I'm angry and it's gotten out of control and I knocked her upside her head and I punched a hole in the wall.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and then a woman is like, wait a minute.
Hold up.
This is not what I signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
But, I just think that sometimes we just don't think. Like, I tell people all the time, like, if you want to sit and talk about marriage, we can sit and talk about marriage, because trust me, I got some stories for you.
Yeah.
And
I remember being in that room.
Yeah, like they'll say to me, and you stayed or you went back and you still, yeah, I did. Now, everybody's situation is not like mine, right? Everybody's situation may not turn out the way mine did. But I fought for what I believed was mine to have. And the key was, I prayed and I said, God, if this is meant to be,
yeah,
when I walk away this time, if it's meant to be, you will send him back the way that he is supposed to be, the husband that he is supposed to be to me. You know what I'm saying? And God did just that. And the crazy thing is that when he came back, I was terrified, because I'm like, wait, what is going on? What are you doing? I mean, if I could be honest, like, I'm like, and then God had to remind me of what I asked for those few years, because it was a couple years, those few years prior. Because I'm like, God, what are you doing?
You asked for that.
You know what? And you made a good point, Shanika. You were talking about being attentive and conscious, and being aware is so important. So with me, me and my husband, I feel like we grew up in our marriage. We weren't grown, and then got married. We were still growing up. So that means what? We made a lot of mistakes. Yeah. We hurt each other's feelings. We got on each other's nerves. And what that also meant is we weren't completely happy with ourselves. So when you say two broke people can't make a whole person, we were broke. We were broken people. We had so much baggage, not to mention a blended family, which brings in so much more baggage. But the baggage that you bring in from yourself not being the person that God wants you to be, not being the person that you're already happy with, you got to figure that out while you're married. It is not easy. So, and for years, we both weren't aware of any of that. The moment I became aware of it and told myself, I'm not going to identify as the person that can only be happy if we're both happy. I have to worry about my own happiness and not be so concerned with someone else impacting my joy. That is when I knew that I was way more aware of where I was in my life, individually, because you gotta be good individually before you can be good as a married couple. And that did not happen for me for a long time. I was not aware for many, many years. And I want to say the majority of my married years, I was not aware. So here I was, trying to identify as I can only be happy if we are happy. So if he's not happy, I'm suffering. And that even went into my motherhood, because I was making sure and overcompensating, for the things that my daughter lacked in her father, because her father wasn't around, and the fact that I had brought her into this blended family. So I'm overcompensating. So if she wasn't happy, neither was I. So I had two people that was kind of like at me, and I'm in the middle, and I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't think it's supposed to be this way. But the moment I became aware, um, and sometimes we still struggle with some of the things, but I'm much more aware, and I'm happy with who I am, and that will not be impacted by anyone. But it allows me to bring myself to the table the way in which God would want me to bring myself to the table, so that I can perform as a wife the way in which I should. Not the perfect wife, but
Yeah, that being just being first aware of you,
Mm-hmm.
that for me was like big. And it's funny because Rich just said this, I think this past weekend we were driving back home from the beach or whatever, and we were just talking about growth and a bunch of other stuff, and he was just talking about how he sees the difference in me now than like 8 years ago. But in those 8 years, so much has happened. And I remember having individual conversations with both of you throughout like my journey these past 8 years. And I remember going to therapy because I was like, I got to get me together first.
Yep.
Like, I have to get me together first, because if not, I am bringing all of the stuff that I have attached to me
Yes.
in this at the time right into this relationship. And it was like we were just butting heads so much because it was just like I'm expecting things from him that's like God's telling me like you shouldn't be expecting these things from him.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I'm acting a certain way because of things that I'm carrying that's not even his problem or his fault, but I'm not dealing with them. But I'm pushing it on him. So being in therapy, I learned so much about my own self. Hence, one thing that we talked about on Monday was rejection. And I'm like, I don't deal with rejection. Like, dang, what are you talking about? Like, I just never thought of myself dealing with rejection. Just, thinking of myself as like, just the middle child and things that I've went through. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. But
Right.
because I was dealing with rejection from other areas of my life, I was looking for him to fill so many voids.
Yep.
And I was like, this ain't gonna work until you fill all your voids with me.
Amen.
And I literally I felt like we clashed so much when I was trying to have him fill things for me. And God's like, that's not his job. That's not his job. That's my job.
Yep.
And then throughout, therapy and talking to y'all and reading my word and writing and listening to God, the year of our engagement, well, we wasn't engaged for a full year, but during our engagement, I studied a lot about the wife's mantle because for me, I'm like, I need to learn all about that. I need to learn all about that because I did the work for me so that I can show up properly here. So being as though I did the work on me and now I'm able to show up in different areas. I can give 110% here because I'm aware of myself. I know when I need to check myself. And I know like, ooh, I probably shouldn't say that, or let me think about this first. Like I'm now aware that when I'm feeling a certain way, I probably need to pause and think before I bring something up or whatever. But that's a part of carrying that wife's mantle. And for you, those of you listening who's like, well, what the heck is a wife's mantle? It's a powerful role of assisting and covering your husband. So it's like, covering him and, praying for him, but also assisting him for what he needs, being his helper, and when I was reading it, I was like, okay, understanding like really what's my role, like spiritually, but also like what's my role to him, assisting him with the purpose and the calling on his life, but also with your calling, covering him. And you may not covering him, like praying with him, but also going into your own prayer closet and warfaring for things that God only revealed to you.
Yeah, so let me say this. So because just to piggyback, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
You know, I'm getting old, so I had to say why it's on my
Stop
mind.
it.
But no, when it comes to, and that's the thing, when it, you know, as the wife, we actually are the backbone of the household.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever our temperature is typically what filtrates throughout the house, right? So, you know, if we, for the most part, you know, are happy and we're joyous and, you know, we're calm, you know, whatever, for the most part, that's going to kind of, you know, filtrate through the household. But that's not, I wanted to say that, but that wasn't what I wanted to say.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to piggyback off of the fact of when Khalia was talking about the mantle in regards to covering, because from a spiritual standpoint, absolutely, you cover your husband in prayer, right? You know, with him, for him, when he's not around, what have you. But you also have to be very, very mindful to cover him in public.
Yes.
Regardless of, you know, don't being a wife is not cackling to your girlfriends, you know, about your husband.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things that, you know, that he's done that has made you upset. Or I'm not saying if you have a really good friend and some, you know what I'm saying? Y'all understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is that, you know, you're not going and you're just basically gossiping about your husband, bragging your husband. You protect your husband at all costs.
Yeah.
I don't care what happens. Like when I was going through my stuff, and I think I told Khalia this, like when I was going through my stuff and things were going on, I could have dragged him. Like I literally could have dragged him. But the fact that we were still married, I still had that respect for him as his wife. I'm not going to go out in the street and drag you. I'm not going to go out in the street and, you know, and spread and make your name, you know, bad. So not only should we, you know, protect them and cover them in prayer, but we should also make sure that we are protecting and covering them, you know, in the public, you know, realm as well. You know, that's kind of like, for me, I can't stand that. You know, when women just sit around and you just like bashing your husband, I'm just like, well, then why you marry him?
Yeah.
And not even that, like when it comes to the mantle, protecting them in public, how you talk about them and all the attitudes. I was about to say, the mantle is how do you, you know, you kind of carry that and cover him with your actions, with your attitudes, with your words. Like, and Rich and I have conversations about so much stuff. And like in today's world, I see it from people I know, from strangers, whatever. And it's just like we can't keep controlling men with our attitudes.
Yeah.
Like you gotta grow up. Like you gotta deal with your stuff. And you can't just keep controlling men with your attitude.
Exactly.
It's funny.
Shanika,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What Shanika said is so important. So, not that I was bashing my husband when we were going through things, but I thought I had friends that I could share all the details with.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong.
We're not friends anymore.
There you go.
So it is so I consider that the public, right? So when we're separating it from spiritual and public, let me go back. I never really put God first for many, many years. Like it was my husband, right?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't clicking for me that it was supposed to be God then my husband. So God was starting to show me some things so that he could get my attention. Mm-hmm. That was number one. Number two, because I wasn't putting God first, I wasn't covering my husband the right way. I wasn't praying, for the right things. It was always, can you fix this thing? Can you help me with this thing? God, so it wasn't covering. It was more like trying to bring God in after mistakes were made. Yes. Number two. And then I was that chick. Thought I had some good friends from years ago, and God wasn't first. I wasn't covering my husband the right way, and I thought I had these friends that I can share the information with. And I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't bashing him, but the perception was, our marriage wasn't whole, proper. Our marriage wasn't whole, and we were both making mistakes. And so it was almost like I'm bashing the person that I'm married to in a way that was sharing with friends I thought I could trust, but I couldn't. And then the sabotage would begin. Mm-hmm. To this day, I sometimes I think back and I'm like, I probably caused more of the sabotage based off of who I thought I could share information with. None of the women were married, that I was sharing with, first of all. And then even when they did get married and, I thought that was better, mm-hmm. I still couldn't trust those people. And so, those individuals. And so not friends with them. When I give advice about being married, first thing is you don't share any of what is going on in your household with who you think is your friend, because it's not for them. It is not for them. And sometimes you can't even share it with your family, because at the moment that you are forgiving, other people are not.
They're not, right?
They're not.
Exactly.
So these were the lessons I learned. It was hard. I'm talking childhood friendships that I thought I was, people I would still be friends with were stabbing me in the back in a way that I would have never expected. Trying to be friends with my husband behind my back. And again, I sit back now and I'm like, it was all me. I was doing all the wrong things. Not that I'm not not that anyone else is not being held accountable for their actions, but at the end of the day, I wasn't doing exactly what you were saying, Shanika. I was not protecting my marriage, protecting my husband, covering my marriage, covering my husband in the right ways. And some of these lessons that I learned, it's like I had to learn them even later in the years, right? And so for many years, it was like, darn, I went backwards again. I did that thing again. I trust too much. So that I think that is extremely important. Cackling with your girlfriends about your husband is not the thing to do.
Mm-mm. Yeah, like don't beat yourself up too bad. I mean, it was a learning experience, right? Because again, back then, when you were doing it, you thought these are people you can trust, right? Yep. So you wasn't looking at it as, I'm just doing this as I want, because I want the whole world to know that, what my husband has done or what he's not doing or has done or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I did the same thing, right? And like you said, like once, you forgive, other people don't. Mm-mm. But at the same time, the biggest thing that you mentioned, these people are not married, and they were not married, right? So you can't expect a single person to understand what you're going through as a married person.
Right.
So even now, because listen, there's going to probably be something else. You know what I mean? Like maybe not as major as, what has happened previously. But, as we grow, things happen, life happens, right? But that's why I always say people should always have at least one person, in your life that you can be completely and totally naked with.
Yeah.
In regards to everything, your marriage, your children, your job, whatever. And that person can't be your spouse,
right?
Because there are certain things that you just can't, share with your spouse. And then you have that safe space, that safe person for you to be able to unload, because we need to unload, right?
Yeah.
But just not with and then, females can be very, very jealous hearted, unfortunately. I know that's people feel like it's a cliche and we say it all the time. And no, I'm not saying every single female is jealous because you're married and they're not.
Right.
At the same time, there is a sense there, especially when you're like the same age, you kind of grew up, together, travel in the same circles, whatever the case may be. And it's like, oh, well, now that you're married, this, that, then you can't do this, you can't do that. So, and then they want you to come, and tell them your business.
Yep.
Just so that they can say, that's why you should never got married.
Yep.
He ain't nothing. He ain't this. He ain't that. But then what I have found is that some of the same people who did that to me are now kind of in the same situations that they beat me up about for staying in.
Wow.
They're actually doing themselves.
Right.
So which is why not always, I'm about to say you should never use the words never and always. Because You just don't know. You don't know what life is going to throw you, right? So I just think that, I think that for anyone who is listening, if you are a younger couple, young and you're married, what have you, and you feel, just don't. Do not, find yourself someone, that has some years under their belt with some wisdom, or just other mature, married couples, to be able to kind of like, bounce things off of, because only someone else that's married is going to understand a marital, like issue. Someone single is not gonna really not gonna understand, like where you're coming from, what you're dealing with.
And I'll say, if you don't have those people in your life, there's always therapists that can help support building you up in the way that you need to be built up, so that the things that come, a lot of times the things that show up in marriage is from our childhood. It's our baggage. It's deep rooted issues that we don't even think about until they actually show up in our marriage.
Right.
And so if you feel like you don't have people in your life that have longevity in, marriage, and can, impart that wisdom on you, and you can share with them, and they'll be able to support you. Therapy is always great to have. I think therapy it's probably more pronounced now than ever before in these last few years, but it was always like, you know, oh, I'm not crazy. I don't need to go to therapy. It's not about that. It's really one, having an outlet, one, trying to, correct anything that you feel like is a concern for you. And it's not, trying to change you as a person, but it's trying to uncover the things that you may have suppressed. And so, in sharing with a therapist the things that you experience in your marriage, that's just as good, if not better, than sharing with, a friend, or, a married couple or something. So, because they don't know your people for the most part, right?
No, it's unbiased, and that's why I love having access to a therapist, because I say it all the time, like, they're paid to listen to me.
Exactly.
They're paid to listen to me, and they're paid to give me an unbiased opinion and guidance. And I think because again, I would go to my friends crying and talking and stuff like that, and now it's just like, now that like I'm in a good space, and that's not even something I do anymore. I like my friends to be my friends.
That's
I
it.
want my friends to be my friends. I want my family to be my family. I don't want someone to be my therapist. Yes, sometimes if you need a shoulder, I got a shoulder, but I want my friends to be my friends. I
Yeah.
want to have fun with them. I don't want to always be like, oh God, what's going on over there? Like I just want them to be them, and I'm gonna go over here and get the professional help from over here.
Right.
But it's just like being able to, in order to carry the wife's mantle, in order for God to even trust you in that area, we do have to make sure that we're doing the work in ourselves. Because then you can show up in your marriage properly, but not just in your marriage. But as we transition into motherhood, you're able to also show up in the other areas of your life as well. Because being a mom of two boys, it's especially my oldest, I see me in him like no other, and it is so scary sometimes. But because number one, I went through therapy, God talks to me a lot. I talk to him a lot. He's revealed some things to me. It's just like, oh snap, I know what that is. Or, when he's balling up, when I'm like, he's dealing with some anxiety here. Like, oh my gosh, like don't worry about, like, I'm like, things that like I wish was pointed out to me when I was a kid. Things that, I wish, like, oh, I wish somebody held my hand through this, or I wish I knew, or my mom knew that I was dealing, like that's what I was dealing with or whatever. But I can walk him through it, and I can see it. But my journey as a mom, there's so much that I deal with, because you got to be a mom, you got to be a wife, and then if anybody knows anything about me, I go after what I want. Like it's just in my blood, and I'm going to make it happen. And I do sometimes deal with like mommy guilt, where I'm like, okay, let me close that top, or let me do this, or like, if they're out at the gym or something like that, and I hear the truck pull up, I'm like, oh, let me close myself. Like, I don't want them to see me working. I don't want this and I don't want that. Or, killing myself trying to make sure that I do this, that, and the other, that I show up for this, that I do that. Because in therapy, I learned like you're reacting to trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even realize it was trauma.
Yep.
Trying to show up, you're trying to make sure that your kids don't feel maybe how you felt at one point as a child or stuff like that. And I'm like, that mommy guilt creeps up, and then it's funny, but God uses my kids to remind me that, like, my kids are really, oh, mom, I love you, or mom this, or mom that, and I'm like, huh. Like the things that I'm tripping over, they're not even realizing, but the way that, raising my children as like a family with Rich, he helps me tremendously. I get compliments on being a mom all the time, but I'm like, Lord knows. I tell him he's more patient than me. He has all the remedies. He has all the life metaphors. Like, he be sitting there talking to the kids, and I be listening like, that was a good one. It's just, he really makes being a mom, like, and this is just from my experience, but he makes being a mom so much easier because he knows when I'm in my head. And he can talk me down. He can, I can be open with him, like, I felt terrible today, or, I feel like I fussed at the kids too much, or, I can talk to him about it and he'll like kind of help ground me again. I feel like, oh, maybe I'm doing this too much or whatever. But he is like, them kids are looking at you like and think that this is really cool. You're taking them on this journey and stuff like that. And then outside of that, you do so many other things with your kids. It's just like having to unlearn some things and separate kind of some stuff that I deal with and things I'm dealing in therapy, and just raising my kids and kind of letting them have their own journey without the influence of whatever my childhood journey was.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I deal with, but also as a wife, mother, and business owner and entrepreneur and all the other stuff I am, giving myself the space and the grace to still be me and not lose myself in all of those roles. That is super, super important, not just to me, but my husband says it. He was like, I know what I married. He was like, I know what I got myself into. You were driven from the time I met you. He was like, but that's also one thing I like. So if you were to all stop that, I'm not, I don't know what I would do. He was like, but I love the fact that you chase your dreams. He loves the fact that I'm going after them. We're two introverts. We're like, we spend the day together, or we spend a day peopling or out with family. We all come in the house, and all four of us, we go find our space and we like go be, So it's just like, I love the fact, but that those are things I have to constantly remind myself. You got to give yourself the space and the grace to not lose yourself in your family, not lose yourself in your marriage, not lose yourself in your kids, because little do I know that's kind of some of the best things that they love and the things that make me me.
Yeah. See, for me, in regards to like going after my goals and things of that nature, I didn't really begin to start pursuing any of those things until my children were older.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a twofold. One of the reasons why was because I was afraid. The other reason was because I felt like my place was with them. Mind you, during that time, coming up when my children were coming up, it wasn't like, things are, today. Now, I've always been heavily involved in church, and in church I had huge leadership positions.
Yeah.
So that I felt some guilt from that. I was a youth leader. And I was a youth leader for like 13 years. I'm hoping my computer don't die on me, guys. For about like 13 years, and I was, between doing that and also being the praise dance ministry, I was heavily involved in church, and I did things mainly because I kept busy because I didn't want to deal with life.
Yeah.
Now, I enjoyed doing ministry, right? And I was successful at doing ministry. But at the same time, as my daughter, more than my son, was coming up, your mom as a youth leader is almost like your mom being a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was things where, and she'll tell people to this day, you know what I'm saying? Like, things she wasn't able to do. It wasn't, we had those kind of, conversations. So I felt like, guilty because I did give a lot of time to the church, right? And to ministry. But my children still didn't like lack. They still were involved in things. I still, spent time with them. I still, was around them. But I felt like it could have been, more. But at the same time, doing all those things, it wasn't really so much as about me pursuing what I wanted to really pursue for me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I didn't really start doing that until actually like I want to say probably like 2015 when I got laid off from Blue Cross. I was there for like 19 years. I always kind of knew what I wanted to do. I always wanted to help people. I always, mentored, young ladies and things like that. But my rejection issues and stuff caused some insecurity, which caused some fear, which prevented me from being able to like really branch out. But then as I began to like really, start really doing the work on me and becoming free from those things, then that confidence came, and then I was able to, to at least, go ahead and launch. And like now I'm at a place now where I'm able to sit on platforms like this one and be able to talk and not feel nervous, and trying to figure out what to say and, all those kinds of things, because I would avoid these types of things like the plague, because I still was kind of dealing with, those insecurity things. But now that my children are older, I am basically an empty nester, for the most part. So I'm able to really like go full force with what it is that I really want to do and, achieve my goals, but being able to do that and not, make sure that my husband is not lacking. Because right now it's really just me and him. I mean, I'm still here for my kids whenever they need me, but they're grown. They're grown. But yeah, so no. But with the when it comes to that, with the mommy guilt stuff, I get it. Right? I get it. But I think that as long as you are still able to kind of balance, like your husband was saying to you, Khalia, you might be doing all these things, but you do still make time, for your children. You still do things with your children. You take them out. I see your pictures and stuff all the time, and I'm like, this is absolutely awesome. Although I wouldn't want to go back to dealing with my kids being that age.
Right?
This is awesome. You know what I'm saying? Like, things you're exposing them to. You know what I mean? All those kinds of things. I'm like, no, you are a great mom. And because there's a lot of young women out here that are your same age who are not thinking like that. They out here trying to be a boss and their kids are being neglected.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because of them pursuing their dreams. So it's about balance. And I think that when God is involved, when God is the center, again, my favorite scripture, seek ye first.
Yeah.
The kingdom of God and all of his righteousness and all of these things will be added unto you. When we seek him first, he will make sure that everything fits together.
Yeah.
Nothing is lacking. And you're able to pursue your goals and run your business and be a wife and be a mom. And people looking at you like, yo, how in the world?
All the time, like, how the heck you do all that? Half time, like, I don't know.
Like, you and your husband ain't arguing. Your kids ain't mad at you.
Oh, that's
that's God is involved. That
that's a question we get all the time. When
you're seeking God first, He will make sure that everything is lined up, and nothing is lacking.
Amen.
Nothing is lacking.
That's a question we get all the time, like about arguing. So I guess it's normal to argue all the time. I don't like to argue. Number one, I can't argue, y'all. I suck at it. Like, I absolutely suck at arguing. If you want to win an argument, come argue with me. I just suck at it. Like, I'm just not built to argue. Like, so you will never see me debating on social media about stuff. It's just, I don't like to argue. Like, I really do have this mindset that, like, people are entitled to their opinions. That's how you think. I don't have to necessarily accept it, but that's how you think. But not to say we've never argued, though. And I think that's why we don't argue now, and we get to actually enjoy, like, our first year of marriage has been, like, awesome. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's been, like, absolutely amazing. But I think because of what we had to like muddle through the mud and kind of come out of, and we were arguing all the time at each other's neck and stuff like that, we've learned how to actually communicate. Like
Yeah.
it's like now it's just like if one of us got a problem with one of us, we can actually have a conversation, just like we're having a conversation right now. And we don't argue. We just talk things out, and I think one of the biggest things for us is that, like I said, we've been together 8 years, and yes, we did things the untraditional way. But we learned so much about each other, and
Yeah.
we gave each other the space to learn. And even when we did something that hurt each other's feelings, it was hard. It was, I'm not gonna act like it was easy. It was very hard, but grace was in there somewhere. And I say it all the time, like God's hands was in all of that. But we gave each other so much grace. And because we gave that grace, not only to each other, but to ourselves to grow and learn without the condemnation, without the guilt tripping and stuff like that, God then took his hand and was like, all right, it's time for my restoration work, and restored us in a way that's like,
Yeah.
I don't need all this. Like,
Right.
got my back. Like, I can say I got a problem with something and the world not blow up, or one of us can say, hey, I don't think I really like that. And the other person can literally put their stuff to the side to listen to you and try to understand where you're coming from. So it's like that part right there, like
Yeah.
helped, even going through business and stuff like that. I remember him, this was a while ago before we got married, and he was like, yo, you're working a lot. And I don't know where do I fit in? Like, and being able to have that conversation, then now that we're married, it's like that's conscious for me. And it's just like I never will overwork myself to the point that like he doesn't fit in. There's times where like he'll randomly text me like, yo, let's go out, or hey, let's go grab something to eat. Let's go out to eat tonight or something like that. And I might have a meeting scheduled. I will kindly go like he won't even know I have a meeting. I'll reschedule. Boop, 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 sorry, something came up for me. I have to reschedule.
That's
Yeah.
right.
No absolute problem doing that. And then we'll be at dinner or something, and I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. I just had to check, make sure they were okay with the reschedule. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I had a meeting, but you went about dinner. But why you didn't tell me? I said, because I want him to know that you take precedence.
Yeah.
So, and that's important for me. And I feel like God guides me a lot in those things, because there's gonna be times where like I can't reschedule this, you
Right.
know. But
Right.
then like, so given that balance, like he knows that like I got that brain in here. But
Yeah.
I'm learning, especially because I know like I don't publicly speak about things that like God has in store for us, but like God gonna move. And I think because of just how we deal with each other, how we deal with each other's calling, how we cover each other, how we support each other, that couldn't happen until we was right with each other. Because he's like, y'all gonna have to be right for what's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, but as we close up, number one, I just want to tell you guys just how like impactful you guys were for me, because like even like pre-engagement, like before we were even engaged, like you were two people that I can come and talk to, like how you were saying, like you need somebody that you could just unload to, like I could do that.
Right.
Even when I didn't want to unload, but y'all would like send something, and I was like, I know y'all be praying, because I'd be like, ain't nobody even tell her nothing, and she like texting me like, like it'd be like all at the right time, but I could unload, and then you guys would share with me. You guys would be unbiased. There was times that you guys would just talk to me, but it would give me things to think about, and like in that time, like I got into therapy. We were in therapy at the same time. Like we didn't wait till we got engaged to get
Yeah.
married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like why go spend all that money on a ring and then go
Right.
like,
Right.
so we didn't wait till then, but more so it was like I want to get myself together, because if I want to be with you, then I got to figure this stuff out now. But you guys were really there. You shared your stories. You even and like invited me into like your families, and just being able to just like experience that and have that access, that's something that I'm uber grateful for because I need it. And like I said, I was so serious. I want my friends to be my friends. I want my family to be my family. So having people that I can go to talk about motherhood with, wifehood with, my career, because outside of business, I'm a finance supervisor. So like being in, that realm and just being like, it's okay to, do what you got to do, but hey, pay attention to this. Always drop little nuggets, like make sure you're paying attention to this. Make sure, I went through this. These are some things that I'm feeling. This might be something you feel, but hey, this is, so having people to guide you was super, super, super important. That's why I'm like at the wedding, there were so many people there, and in particular, like you guys and other mentors that was at the wedding. It was just like from then, like pre-engagement to like the wedding was just like, dang, yo, like that was a huge moment. Like I broke down at the top of the steps, like, Greg, I get stuff, get stuff. But it was like, it's such a luxury and an honor to just be able to have people like you that I can like unload to and kind of share this journey with. And you guys got like 20 years in. Like I love my girlfriends that are married, but I want advice from y'all.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
I mean, I do. Listen, I wish when I first got married, I got that. So, like I said, we rise by lifting others, and I like to keep it real. I, help when someone asks help. They ask of help. And the thing about it is like, what is the God is not allowing us to experience these things to hold it in and to keep it behind locked doors. We are going through whatever it is we're going through. And even as a mother, like I know I went through as a wife, but from a motherhood perspective, my guilt was never about, spending time elsewhere. It was about, I'm really pulling my daughter into a blended marriage, a new person that she'll have to, respect and listen to. And then to me, that was just like harder for me harder for me to see her have to experience than harder for myself. And so whoever I can share these experiences with and help and guide and, that's just to me, that's what God really had. That's why we have our testimony, right? Is to share and to help with,
Exactly.
share,
It says it in the, oh gosh, forgive me for not remembering the Bible verse right now, but it's in the Bible where, and it's my version of it, where God's like, and this is literally why I like run my businesses, so I do what I do, because God, and why I wrote my book, because God's like, look, there's things that you're gonna go through, and I'm gonna step in and I'm gonna get you through them. I'm not gonna get you through them just because of you, but I'm gonna get you through them. You in turn go do that same thing.
Right. Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
That's, I live and breathe off that.
Because that's what it's for.
I have met so many. My connection with like me and my daughter, the way in which we are, and the things that we have experienced. So like my experience growing up, and having to experience not having my father, I didn't know what that was for. I didn't know, of course, to me, rejection and abandonment. Fast forward, I know my father now. I met him when I was 33. But God was preparing me for what he knew my daughter was going to experience.
Yeah.
And he knew how I was going to have to and be able to guide her through her emotional state, through her, pain, through her growing up, the way in which she had to grow up. And when that clicked, the relationship between me and Brooklyn just, went higher. And it was, and not that we wouldn't have had a great relationship, but we connected on so many different levels. And the fact that she shares this with me, and God has allowed me to connect with her emotionally that way without just saying, oh, just go to therapy and deal with it that way. No, I am able to deal with it, at home with her. We can have those heart to hearts. She can cry on my shoulder and I know how it feels. I actually know how it feels.
Right.
And so that's the kind of guilt that I had as a mother is, sometimes I felt like I put her even before my husband, because the things that I felt like I had to overcompensate for, it was like, yeah, I know she needs this right now, and a lot of times I don't even regret it, to be honest, because I feel like I needed to get her through, certain spaces in her life. And to this day, I'm thankful for God allowing me to first have a child, because children are gifts from God. And to second, I get to raise this child. And now she's 23.
Like, you're just killing it.
23, and I'm looking back and the things that we have gone through and the things that she has experienced as an individual. And it's just amazing to me. And Shanika, I know that you experience, I'm sure you experienced this as a mom of 2 adults. It's like, wow, like you did that. You did that. And it's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. I just feel so blessed. And it's, I can't say that. I think she is so much more successful than I was at school child. 23. I was like, I actually had her. I was she was a baby, but it's just, to me, unbelievable, and I just feel so blessed with God, being able to allow me to share those types of moments and to be a mother and to see this success. So yeah, I think to me that is the dream come true. Right?
Yeah, no, it is, because when you think about, I know when I think about my life, and I know we're wrapping up. But when I think about just my overall life, like what I come from, the hurdles I had to go over, the things that I fought so hard to not have my children, to experience or feel or be a part of. And then I look at them now, and granted, they are your typical, 26-year-old, 19-year-old. But when I look at, it could be a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
But my kids, they are, they're doing their thing. They're out here grinding. They're respectful. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have morals. They have values. It's like, so yes, and most importantly, they love God. I mean, but I have always taught them to have that individual relationship with God. Their relationship with God is not based upon my relationship with God.
Right.
So, they have their own convictions, right? They know how to go to God in prayer. They know when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, all those kinds of things. And then I have such a great relationship with them where I tell them all the time, I am not your friend, but you will always have a friend in me.
Amen.
So they know how far to go.
Yeah.
But we have that relationship. I mean, I talk to my kids. They talk to me about, of course, no child tells their parent everything. But I mean, my kids, for the most part, they talk to me. So I kind of, and like I was saying earlier about being aware, like as a wife, you have to be aware as a mother. Like, I know my children. I am in tune with my children. So even if they don't tell me, I know that it's something. I know that something is going on. But yes, when I look at them and I'm like, Lord, I thank you. Because if I didn't, like I said the other night, how rejection saved my life. If I did not pivot, right, and look at rejection from a different standpoint, like, I don't know what type of children I would have. I don't know what type of life I would be living, what type of person, I would be. Like, because I had to break the cycle, and was willing to deal with the rejection of my family and my siblings and things of that nature, because I chose different, because I chose to live different, because I wanted my children to have a better life, and to not have to deal with the things that I had to, to grow up dealing with. Like I said, they're your typical kids. They work my nerves. They're spoiled brats. I mean, but I love them to death. But they are good kids.
That's right.
Never had to go to the jailhouse, take them out of jail. I'm not, and this is no indictment on anyone who has experienced that. Please hear my heart.
Right. Definitely.
It could be so much worse. You know what I mean? Like, it could just be some, and my heart bleeds for young people who are looking for, different things, because they might not have it at home, because they might not have a parent that's that in tune with them. Like I think Khalia, you mentioned earlier, or it might have been Kristy, when you were going through some things. Not that your mom didn't care, but it was something maybe she was, into her own thing or her own stuff to the point that when you was going through what you was going through, she didn't really notice it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So sometimes that happens, and then kids take that and that goes into adulthood, and then it ends up becoming an issue. And so yes, I am extremely grateful for that. I'm all in my kids' business. People can say whatever they want. I tell my kids all the time, as long as you're living here, and even when you're not living here, you don't have any business. I'm going to always be in your business. Now, granted, yes, I give you the respect. Sierra's 26, Miles is 19. But at the same time, yes, I'm going to be in your business.
That's right, Shanika.
I'm going to be in your business. And, that's just it. Especially in this day and time. Like my daughter, I tell people all the time, they laugh. And it's the last thing I'm shutting my mouth. She's 26 years old. Sierra technically does not have to tell me when she's coming or going, or where she's going or what she's doing. My daughter still will text me or call me and say, Mom, hey, I'm going here, I'm doing this, or I'm hanging out here. When she wasn't even living here, because she ended up coming back when the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't living with me. She was, and I had to text her, and I had to snapshot the text message. I said, Sierra, you don't live with me anymore. Like, you don't have to text me to tell me, where you're going. She was like, Mom, I'm going, it's just a force of habit. Like, it's the force of habit I'm going to always do. I mean, I'm happy she does it.
Right.
The way these streets are, at least I know
right there.
She said she was going, and this is the area. But, just the fact that they just respect me as mom.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm going to let my parents know what I'm doing. I'm going to go to my parents if I need some advice. I'm going to talk to them about what's going on with me and my friends. I am grateful, because we have a lot of young people who don't talk.
Yeah, that's
true. Talk, they don't share. And it's very important as a mom to build that relationship with your children where they can feel comfortable coming to you, talking to you and sharing, with you. Like, now my son, sometimes I'm like, all right, seriously? He's that whole, I don't know what they are. He's 19, so what, like the Y generation or something?
Gen Z.
Like when Sierra was that age and like younger, like certain things he come say to me, she would never. And she's like, boy, what do you, and I'm like, did you really just say that to me? And he's like, Mom, what? What's the problem? Like, I'm talking to my mom.
Oh.
But I'm glad you're talking to me.
That's a blessing, yeah. That's a blessing.
But this was good. Thank you.
Creating that safe space. But no, thank you guys for just chatting. Thank you guys for sharing. Because that's how I get my nuggets. That's how I kind of get my growth. That's why I'm like, I'm still learning, and I will always be like a student, because like I'm never gonna, like, I'll get to your years, but you're always gonna be years ahead of me.
We're all still learning.
Like I just appreciate the willingness to share, because we live in a society of gatekeepers, and nobody wants to share. Everybody wants to be on top. Everybody wants to be the best, But I appreciate being able to grow, like to be able to grow, and people pull me up with it. So for our listeners, if you don't take anything from today, whether you're, becoming a wife or are a wife or engaged or got years in, whatever, a mother, wanting to become a mother one day, or pregnant or whatever, even just dreaming and going after your business, give yourself space and grace. Give yourself the space to be you. Give yourself the space to grow. Give yourself the space to learn. Give space for other people that are mature in the areas that you're pursuing to step into your life. But give yourself grace, man, because you are ever evolving, you're ever changing, you're ever learning. You're going to go through so many different seasons, and you got to give yourself grace, because you're not going to always get it right.
That's true.
You're not going to always get it right. But like, it made my husband say this, like, I'm not going to always get it right, but I want to get it right in the big areas. And I feel like the big areas that we get it right is because we got God's guided, like God is guiding us. So even when we don't get it right, it's just like, all right, you didn't get that right. You got to learn from that, but that's not going to break this.
Right.
So like, have grace, keep God first, let him, be your guide and direction. But it's all these journeys, whether it's motherhood, going after your dreams, or being a wife, they're dope.
Yeah.
They're awesome. I love it. Like, my husband is my best friend. I say it all the time. He's my best friend. Like, we do everything together. He's my favorite person to go to the bar with. He's my favorite person to travel with. He's like my favorite person to kick it and binge watch movies with. Like literally, I'm probably gonna go do that right after we hang up. But my best friend, and I love my kids. They drive me crazy. One just tried to sneak in, and I'm like, stop. Like, but those are my guys, and I love being the only woman in the house. Like, they spoil me with everything. But give yourself grace. And I tell myself that I be praying to God, like, God, I was a little too fussy with the kids this week. Like, I'm sorry. I'm really going to try to do better, and then I fuss again tomorrow. But, like, give yourself grace and, like, know that you're learning right with your kids. And one last thing, because I think this is super important, because I don't think, not that I didn't have this space as a kid, but I don't know why, but I think it was just more so like it is what it is, or it's because I said so. So my youngest, what I'm learning to do, he's very affectionate. He's very hands-on, and like I'm not always like that. Like, to be completely honest, I'm not always like that. I like my space, and sometimes I need it. So sometimes, like, if he's just too much, or like I just need a moment, because as a mom, wife, and a business owner, sometimes I need a moment by myself. So sometimes I'll be like, Jax, I need my personal space for a few minutes. He'd be like, okay, he'll walk away, then he'll yell, Carter, mom needs her personal space. But like at first when I said that, I was like, dang, I feel guilty. I probably shouldn't have said that. But then like the second time when that happened, and I was like, he could sense I was a little frustrated with something, not with him. He's like, Mom, you need your space a little bit. I said, you know what? I think I do. I think I do. And he was like, okay. And he gave me my space, but I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because he's learning that, you know what? Instead of being mean, instead of being angry, I could just communicate. But I had to give myself grace to learn how to do that. So guys, I hope you were encouraged and inspired by this conversation. I will put their contact information, their websites, their social medias, all that good stuff in the show notes and the YouTube. Wherever you're watching this, there's going to be some link where you can connect further with Kristy and Shanika and myself. But Kristy and Shanika, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
you.
A good conversation to end the night with.
Right?
But thank you so much. You guys have a great evening, and please just be on the lookout for the next episode.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
See you.